best podcast, The Idlecast.
In the great hall of the Justice League, there are assembled the world's greatest heroes, created from the cosmic legends of the universe.
Scott McDermott.
I was bit by a black widow in Hamul in my sleep.
Harrison Perkins.
Every muscle in my body is clenching right now.
And
Scott Clark.
You know, I would like to get to know a tarantula.
their mission to fight injustice, to right that which is wrong, and to serve all mankind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
Good morning, Vietnam!
We'll do it live. No, we'll do it live.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Well, why are you here, guys? Good morning.
Where else would I go? As Peter said.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I didn't know we had the authority to fine you. That's good to know. We'll start exercising that. We can find Scott. Yes, where else? Oh, very good. Yeah. How are you guys?
Entertained.
Already?
Yeah.
You're easily entertained. What's new, man? How is fatherhood?
So good. Oh, man. I love her. I baptized her on the Lord's Day.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that picture. That was fantastic. What a glorious thing to recognize the covenant child, or your daughter as a child of the covenant of grace, member of the covenant of grace, to admit her formally to the visible covenant community.
To grant her her rights.
Yeah, we hindered her not. We hindered her not because she's holy. So
Yes. And if that shocks you, listener, go take a look at 1 Corinthians 7. See what the Apostle Paul says about the child of a believer. It's in the Bible. It's not magic. So did you perform any magic in the administration of the Holy Sacrament?
No, I did not. Not this time, at least.
Not this time.
But it says, in the BCO, it says, and the minister shall not, something like this, the minister shall not add any ceremony to this after baptizing in the name of the Holy Trinity. And then I kissed her on the forehead and I said, oops. I just performed an extra ceremony, but it was a reaction thing. It was, I had to do it.
Well, that was just an act of paternal devotion. That wasn't any part of the administration of the Holy Sacrament.
I am a devotee.
Did you get the vows thing sorted out? How'd you do it?
I had one of my ruling elders do it.
All right. Well, that's good.
Yeah, I was going to do it to myself, but then I decided,
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I think that's just as well to have one of your ruling elders ask the questions.
Yeah, I actually asked the PCA minister who was in town that weekend. In town. And I thought it was a slam dunk. And he goes, oh, no, I'm going to the Baptist church up the street. I was like, oh, okay. Well, geographically speaking, maybe, because there's no Anglican church in town. But
that's what we've been reading on social media. We'll get to that. Harrison, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Update on my backyard stump project.
I like your pink shirt, by the way.
Thank you. It's got blue in it. It's blue and pink, and I've got blue underneath. And
doesn't cancel it out.
One day I will satisfy you, Scott. One day I will.
You haven't passed the sartorial test,
but not today.
You're more than
I'm in
enough.
my Heidelberg T-shirt, my Heidelblog T-shirt, so I'm in the official uniform. Nothing can be said negatively about my dress.
I use my Heidelblog mug. I think it's not. I don't think it's clean right now. I usually try to save it for Tuesdays. And
Fail.
And I'm in my Dub SP
Well,
shirt.
you're not actually wearing it, but your church has some nice swag. WSP, and that
Yeah, we
stands
do.
for what, Scott?
Word Sacrament Prayer, baby.
Okay, so that'll give you some talking points with people in the community. So you were saying, Harrison.
Oh, it's got a Yeah, so the spot where my big stump was is now flat earth. I'm ready to plant some grass seed, and there will be no evidence of said stump ever. I spent a lot of time working in the yard. Maybe not a lot of time. I spend one day a week in the yard.
That's good.
And I don't really like it, but I'm also obsessed with it.
Well, it's funny. When I was pastoring full-time in Kansas City, particularly at the second house, which was ours, which we owned, I worked on the yard a fair bit. We had a beautiful yard. I wanted the neighbors to be happy with us, make the place look nice. And I found it therapeutic to, work on the yard, pull weeds, do something tangible that I could see, see progress.
I actually accomplished something.
It's Adam's fourth office, the gardener.
Well, yeah, indeed. No, I don't. I think that's fine. When I was doing that stuff, I was always thinking about, this Bible study or that sermon or whatever it was I was supposed to be doing. I had a friend who actually wrote his sermons while he worked on cars.
Oh, right.
So he did it. He's a Dutchman. We called him Herman the German. He wasn't actually German, but it was a joke. He was a Dutchman in a German denomination. And he said that's when he worked on his sermons. And they were good sermons. I heard him preach. I enjoyed Herman's preaching quite a bit. So
that's a lot of times the insight comes when you're not trying to force it. It's just kind of
trying to loosen some bolt on an engine, and then all of a sudden
a bolt in your mind loosens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want a beautiful yard.
Yeah. Well, I think that's nice. I think I think it's nice to have good to have a beautiful yard.
I keep coming up with new. I think I'm going to have to dig a drainage ditch, and that doesn't sound fun.
Can I help?
Yeah, I'm up for anybody's help with that. When it rains, all the water comes down our road, which is kind of slightly sloped, and it's a gravel road, and it just runs straight into like the front of our garage and like right down across the steps towards the foundation. And so I think I'm going to have to divert it somehow. But we have a bamboo patch. Have I talked about the bamboo?
What are you in Thailand?
China?
How do you have bamboo?
There's multiple different kinds of bamboo.
Apparently.
And this is bamboo that can grow in Michigan. And boy, howdy, does it grow.
You sure it's not sugar cane?
No, it is bamboo. It is bamboo. Because if I had this much sugar cane, I'd be selling it. No question about it. The original owner of this house hated the neighbors with a passion. And so he tried to develop this like bamboo,
wall
barrier between, but it's the worst. Like it just grows and grows and grows. It hides everything. Like it is not manageable. It will take over everything. So I've been fighting it for a year, weed killer, and then I dig it up. I've dug up the roots, and it still comes back.
You need to get a panda.
That would be easy. Just go to the panda store and get a panda.
Yes.
The expense of stealing an exotic animal.
That won't be complicated at all.
Vin Diesel and the Fast and the Furious crew were not available to help me with that endeavor.
To steal a panda, which would be an international crime, and have the Chinese Communist Party breathing down your neck.
Because nobody would notice.
Nobody would notice. How much do pandas weigh? I have no idea.
You can always get one from the Detroit Zoo. Or
fair enough.
Just go to
some other
as
zoos.
much bamboo as I do grow in the yard, I don't think it's enough to sustain a panda.
No, well, for like half an hour, probably.
Yeah. It is just grass. Like if you can, it gets hard after you've cut it, but like until it's hardened after it's been cut, it's just grass, and you can mow it and all sorts of stuff. But
I think it would be outstanding to have a panda. If we can't have a full-grown panda, this is one of my life goals. I don't think I'll ever achieve it, but I want a red panda. They're not actually even really pandas, but that's what they call them, red pandas.
I would like to get to know a panda.
Especially a red panda. They are adorable. I mean,
koalas seem pretty cool too.
They're totally harmless, red pandas.
If I could get one of those.
I have red pandas in my social media feed. I enjoy that very much. When they want to be fierce.
I don't even know what you're talking about. There's a red panda?
Yeah, look it up. When they want to be fierce, they stand up with their little paws and they put them up in the air, but that's...
Oh, have you heard of a sloth bear?
I have.
Have you seen them fight a tiger?
What? I have not.
It's insane. They fight tigers.
Sloth bears fight tigers.
Sloth bears fight tigers, like in India, where there are tigers.
Yes.
To protect their young, these bears that are about a quarter of the size of a tiger, and they have sloth fingers and they look like a sloth in the face. They will fight a tiger to the death.
But do they win? That's the question. Because I could fight.
All they're trying to do is keep their young alive, and so in that case, they usually win. Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. Look it up.
Well, if you provide too much resistance to a tiger, then they'll go on to something else. But
Exactly.
It's hard to provide resistance to a tiger. That's the other side, because they come up from behind and they only really need to get you once and you're toast. We had a mountain lion in the neighborhood and they do the same thing. They come up from behind. You never hear them till it's too late. And once they get you with that front right paw, you're in a lot of trouble.
See, cats are not helpful. Trouble. I've said it before. I'm coming back to it.
Well, when they're as large as those are. So this has been an interesting week on social media. This was the week that was on social media. A Baptist became an Anglican, and Twitter just about broke.
You know, it's fascinating. Like the things that dominate Twitter as I open it every day are somebody saying, I hate Matthew Barrett now, and somebody saying, I hate Pedro Pascal. I'm like, it's just full of hate for those two people.
I only vaguely know who Pascal is. He's an actor, and apparently, from what I can see, people think he's getting too much work. But other than that, I don't know why people hate him, and I don't know exactly who he is.
He played the Mandalorian.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And he's in the Fantastic Four that just came out. And
I saw that, and I didn't make the connection. All right, because he's the one. He sounds like Clint Eastwood, at least in the Mandalorian. I thought the whole time, this guy's doing Clint Eastwood, which is great. I thought that was a perfect way to play The Mandalorian, because it's essentially a space Western.
Yeah.
And The Mandalorian's essentially, a traveling gunfighter. So that's Clint Eastwood. Oh, they just needed the Italian, the spaghetti Western theme music from The Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
That's actually my ringtone.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that very much. That's good ringtone. Yeah. So my ringtone is a Nebraska football-related ringtone that wouldn't mean anything to anyone, but I can always tell when it's my phone. So that's interesting that the Baptists think, at least some of them think, that we should be closer to them than we should be to the Anglicans. Most of them, anyway, don't recognize our baptism, which means to them we are unbaptized, but still we're closer to them.
Shocking. Yeah.
It's interesting that Baptists think that they get to set the terms of truth, reality, church history, relationship.
And they get to invent new meanings for words that have been around for a while.
Well, that's the other thing, too. It's interesting how postmodern Baptists have become. Words mean whatever I say they mean. So I don't know. I just think that's very interesting. I haven't been able to figure out how to respond, and I've just decided not to really to respond, other than the post. As we're talking today, it just went up on Monday. We're recording on Tuesday. I published an article on why I'm not an Anglican, what I appreciate about Anglicanism, but why I'm not one. And I gave 3 reasons for that. So, listener, if you haven't seen that, if you're just finding the Heidelcast in the Heidelblog, check that out at heidelblog.net. What did I say? The regulative principle was one. The role of the confessions was another. I can't remember now. What was the third reason that I'm not Anglican, that at least that I gave? Oh, the rule of worship. So, rule of worship, role of the confessions, and church polity. Yeah, those are the 3.
So ACNA is not the Episcopal Church. So they're not
That's correct.
liberal. They're
no.
conservative.
I mean, it's a more diverse group than is sometimes recognized.
Theologically,
yes.
but socially conservative.
But they ordain women, don't they?
I don't think so.
I don't.
I think that's the Episcopal Church.
There's been some tension within ACNA over some of those things. And I don't think that I wish we weren't using the word liberal this way, but social progressivism, I would rather say.
That's fair.
Or leftism, right? Properly understood. Nobody gets this. But all Americans, if you believe in the Constitution, you are a classical liberal, right? You're prepared to live with people who disagree with you. That's what liberal means. But anyway, it's been turned into a synonym for progressive, which is unfortunate.
No, that's fair.
It's diocese to diocese.
But yeah, it's not your fault.
Some ordain women as priests and deacons, others do not.
In the ACNA?
The ACNA allows individual dioceses to make their own decisions on this matter.
Oh, interesting.
It does not permit women to be bishops.
Yeah.
So
they draw the line somewhere.
Tough.
This is the Heidelcast.
So, as I said in the article, people from outside of Anglicanism, of which I'm one, but who maybe haven't paid much attention to Anglicanism and haven't had much connection with them, see them as an undifferentiated mass. It's sort of like looking at Presbyterians and assuming that we're all like the PCUSA or something, or not distinguishing between the OPC, the PCA, and the PCUSA. So it's helpful to distinguish the different kinds of Anglicans, and I made a list of 5, I think, different kinds of Anglicans, right? There are those that are Reformation Anglicans. That's a tiny little group represented by people like Ashley Null. There are latitudinarians, and I described what that is. I'm relying on Julius Kim's work. There are Anglo-Catholics, which is an important group, and which is a group that exists within the ACNA. All these groups, I think, not all of them, but most of them exist within the ACNA. There are evangelicals, who aren't particularly Reformation-oriented. They're really creatures of the 19th century. And then there are liberals, liberal Anglicans, not necessarily in the ACNA, or by liberal, I mean theologically liberal. But among Anglicans, there are certainly theological liberals. So there are lots of different kinds of Anglicans. Sometimes people read Ashley Null or Philip Hughes or somebody like that, and they say, oh, well, that's what I want to be. Well, that's just one segment of the Anglican world, and not a particularly big segment of it. When I was in the UK, I knew some evangelicals who had Reformation sympathies, to be sure, but most of the Anglican churches were from the Oxford movement.
But I could say that about a lot of the Presbyterian denominations in the well, maybe not a lot. I could say that about some Presbyterians in the UK, evangelicals with Reformation sympathies.
Well, that's right. That's right. I think that's fair.
My historical work has focused on Reformed conformist tradition. Yeah. In some ways by accident, because James Ussher was a Reformed conformist. And so this to me does not seem miles away from us, even if there are real and important differences. But yeah, certainly it doesn't seem like the end of the world that someone is gone Anglican.
No, and especially if they believe the historic Christian faith, they believe the 39 Articles, they actually believe what those things say, and try to practice that in some biblically, confessionally responsible way. But one of the things I try to help people understand when they talk to me about becoming Anglican is, at least theoretically in the Presbyterian and Reformed world, if you are in a Westminster Confession church or a Three Forms church, your leadership is supposed to be faithful to those documents. In the Anglican world, the 39 Articles really don't norm their life. Theoretically, the Book of Common Prayer does, but then, after you're in the Anglican world for 5 minutes, you begin to realize, well, there's not just one Book of Common Prayer. There are multiple books of Common Prayer.
In the Church of England, you don't actually subscribe. And this is different from like ACNA, to be clear. Yeah. In the actual Church of England, you just have to acknowledge the 39 Articles as a historical statement of the church's faith.
Yeah. But even in ACNA, there are plenty of people who essentially dismiss the 39 Articles.
That could be. I'm just speaking to what I know.
Sure.
Caveat, I don't know what their vows are like.
The group I know best within ACNA, because it's a amalgamation of more than one denomination. And the group I know best is the Reformed Episcopal Church, which is part of ACNA. And the REC got taken over by the Anglo-Catholics. So I don't know if there are any sort of Reformation 39 Articles types left in the REC. And I'm interested in the REC for historical reasons, but also that's how I became Reformed. It was guys who graduated from the old RE seminary in Philadelphia before it became an Anglo-Catholic school, when it was still what they used to call a prayer book Presbyterian school. And those guys taught me real Reformed Reformation Christianity. But I know it was in the process of becoming an Anglo-Catholic seminary when I was starting grad school in 1993. That was a long time ago.
So Trinity Anglican Seminary actually has a Presbyterian ordination track.
Yes. It's like RTS. RTS has an Anglican ordination track. So.
Well, the place where I'm going with that is actually I don't know of any Baptist seminaries that have a Presbyterian ordination track.
No, I'm sure they don't. So, I think that'd be of the essence of being Baptist is to not do that.
So back to where's the lines of proximity?
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. So it's complicated. There are ways in which we connect with Anglicans. We have points of commonality. There were, there's a tradition within Anglicanism of conforming Reformed people. Now, it's complicated with Ussher, right? Because he's not C of E. So in that sense, he's not Anglican. He's in the C of I.
Yeah, he was Church of Ireland.
Church of Ireland,
But he was a conformist, and that's probably the better category for the time. He was a conformist, and he supported episcopacy, a reduced form of it.
Yeah.
So, but he also was very clear on soteriology, continuity of the covenant of grace, the regulator principle. I mean, I don't know that we would agree with all of his conclusions about what fits according to the regulator principle, but he articulated a RPW rationale for the things he did in worship. He held a Reformed view of the Sabbath. That's clear in the Irish Articles. He held a Reformed view against images of the Godhead. I can't think of a ton of these issues that we might think divide us, where he was, as has been pointed out, the Westminster Confession is technically an Anglican document.
Yeah, that's right. In as much as it was a document that was formed within the context of the Church of England.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a reason why they called the Scottish divines down from Scotland. They just couldn't do it on their own.
I would contest
let's be
that
honest.
vigorously.
Yeah, that's a matter of some debate, but
Would you really?
The Scottish commissioners could not even vote.
So do you think it would look the same as it does now without the Scottish commissioners?
Van Dixhoorn makes the case that they were not as significant to the proceedings of the assembly as has been assumed,
as everyone thinks they are?
As everyone has assumed. And I believe Chad. So people can argue with Chad.
Yeah, it's So that we can say that's a contested matter, and there's and I don't mean this in any prejudicial way, a revisionist approach, which you see in Chad, and then who else did Letham makes a similar line of argument about how we should think about the role and influence. Harrison's favorite word, influence.
I prefer impact.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Scott's making fun because as a teacher, I strongly encourage my students not to use impact in their writing the way that people typically do. When you have two vehicles running into each other, you have an impact. When people mean effect or possibly influence, though Harrison's not a huge fan of that use of the word influence.
I would say influence and impact are roughly the same function.
So, well, at least there's a discernible result of impact, and that's one of the problems with influence. But at any rate, you could talk about Perkins. I think he's probably less committed to episcopal polity than maybe Ussher, but very much on the Genevan track, and yet a conforming, or a conformist, as you say, a conforming Puritan, sometimes people say. I think of people like Sibbes, and there are lots of other conforming people. I mean,
Featley?
look at
your guy Featley from the series on the Heidelberg?
Yeah. The Sweet Dipper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not to be confused with the Sweet Dropper, but yes, that's right. Featley and others. So, I mean, presumably the Anglican delegates, commissioners to the Westminster Assembly are conforming, and apparently after the Assembly, most of the Presbyterians became conforming again. So, when our Baptist friends complain about this, I don't think they really have taken the time to understand the history. There are no Baptists at the Westminster Assembly. They weren't invited to participate. Most of the sentiment was against the developing Baptist movement. So the assumption that we should be together is somewhat problematic from a historical point of view. And as you were saying, from a theological point of view and a practical point of view.
Ecclesiastical, yeah.
Ecclesiastical, yeah.
So we can draw it down to, well, I like Matthew Barrett, and I'm not opposed to Pedro Pascal.
Okay.
You guys can voice your own opinions. I'm indifferent to Pascal, but I like Barrett.
Matthew's been great. I've appreciated him. And, it's interesting. So here's the piece I'm sort of working on for next Monday. And that is, how coherent is it for Baptists to call themselves Catholics, lowercase c? So that's the thing I'm working on. Are Baptists Catholics? Do they have a genuine claim to Catholicity? Because this is a point that's being discussed right now. And the Baptists are asserting, oh, yes, we are Catholic. And, look at this language in the preface to the First London Confession or the Second London Confession. And, look at this article by Timothy George where he expresses Catholicity. And so I'm addressing those things and trying to think through that. Because one of the things I've been sort of wondering is you're looking at Baptists retrieving patristic and medieval theology, which is a good thing, but how will that work over the long term unless they follow Gill and Spurgeon? Not Spurgeon, who am I thinking of? Bunyan. And maybe Spurgeon, I don't know. But unless they follow Bunyan, who was willing to recognize infant baptism as valid, right, and so not really a 1689 guy, and most of them aren't, then you have to say that the church prior to the rise of the Anabaptist movement, in about 1523, we'll say, was mostly unbaptized. Well, that is a fundamental issue for Catholicity. If you're not baptized, you're outside the visible church. If you're outside the visible church, according to Cyprian, you're outside of salvation, which strikes, it seems to me, at the root of Catholicity. So you can say, well, we agree with the doctrine of God and the doctrine of Christ, and that's good and that's necessary, but it seems to me there's more to Catholicity than that. And so I guess it's, in a sense, I'm still working through this, but it seems to me it comes down to the controversy about, the definition of Reformed, it comes down to the definition of Catholicity, and do Baptists get to redefine Catholicity? So that's where I am right now. But I haven't finished yet. You want to finish this for me, boys? Tell me how I should finish this article.
Just, sometimes I begin a sentence and I have no idea where it's going, and it just keeps going and going. It's,
and I find it along
it's
the way.
It's a lot like in improv conversation, in improvisation. So I would suggest that. Usually works for me.
If you keep watching The Office, you'll know what Scott's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an Office quote.
I haven't started yet, so I'm still working through the oeuvre of Chuck Norris and Walker, Texas Ranger.
That's
because
good, too.
You guys told me. Well, actually, what I'm watching right now is Quarterback on Netflix. So it's a documentary about being
Is that a band?
an NFL quarterback.
Oh, no. I'm thinking Nickelback.
I'm finding points of contact since they spend about as much time in physical therapy, or maybe more, than I do. So I was watching a physical therapist working on Cousins. I can't think of his first name. But Kirk Cousins, yeah.
Which is Scottish for church.
Yes. And I was watching him work on his shoulders, and I thought, I know exactly what that physical therapist is doing, and I know exactly how much pain Kirk Cousins is in. So,
that's why he was so good last year.
Well, mine was working on my shoulder the other day, and he did something. He hit the infraspinatus.
That's my favorite.
Opposed to the supra.
Yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. The supraspinatus.
Spinatus.
And I saw a white light when he hit that. So that was so intense that I actually wanted to scream, but nothing came out. But I felt better when he was done, so that was good. There's that. All right, you ready to answer a couple of questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Friends.
All right, let's rock and roll. I'm going to open up the coffer here, reach in, and
well, let's read some emails, shall we?
Oh, I think that's a good idea. You boys can confirm that I have the text before me, printed out. And this is from Jose Carlos Perez.
Not to be confused with Zhao.
Yeah, that's someone else.
Different name.
Whose accounts got
Different language.
hacked, unfortunately. All right. Dear Dr. Clark, may the Lord be with you. Well, thank you, Jose.
And also with you.
And also with you. Well done. Not bad for a guy who was never in an Anglican church. Well, but you were in the Roman communion.
Yes.
So, yeah, they do that too. All right. Dear Dr. Clark, I'm a Mexican Presbyterian student and seminarian, and I'm fascinated with your book, Recovering the Reformed Confession. As should everyone be. Fascinated.
Indeed.
Indeed, yes. I don't know. Fascination might not be the right word, but I'm glad it's helpful. However, it has raised...
Better than triggered.
In me some questions. Yeah, there are some people who are triggered by it, that's for sure. Raised in me some questions concerning the role of Protestant Christianity and spiritual legitimacy with the church fathers. And he goes on. And in fact, this is relevant to our discussion about retrieval, right? Yeah, because he says, with your book, Dr. Fesco's, Craig Carter's, and Craig is a Baptist, Matthew Barrett,
who's an Anglican.
Who's now an Anglican. I've discovered the riches of Catholicity, and so instead of trying to be a neo-Calvinist or a Bardian or a fundamentalist, I'm trying to be only Christian, Reformed, and Catholic. And then he goes on to say, but how do I do that? All right, so that's a great question, and it touches on some of the things we were already discussing. How is that possible to be a Presbyterian and be in genuine, legitimate continuity with the church before the Reformation? I think that's the question. I have thoughts, but you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah, I'd like to hear what Dr. Perkins, who wrote a book on Catholicity,
just one doctrine.
Catholicity and the Covenant of Works on James Ussher, published by
Seems
Oxford.
like it's in his arena, is what I'm saying.
Oxford University Press.
You should stop writing so many books.
That one's a fair bit old, so I don't think that one should count. Well, the first thing, I guess...
so is Catholicity. Sorry, go ahead.
So the first thing, I guess I would think that not all of these... So I get why Bardian and fundamentalist. I don't know that the neo-Calvinist would...
Yeah. I'm not sure. He qualifies that, but I left out his definition. So we'll set that aside for the moment.
Yeah, well, I guess I wouldn't lump the neo-Calvinists into those who can't belong to the small c Catholicity strand, at least as I know them. They, in fact, seem to strive for certain levels of Catholicity, like we all do. In that respect, because I think the specific issue here is relation to the church fathers, and there's a lot of exposition to that question, but I think that's the lodestar for his question. And well, that shouldn't trouble us because the reformers were trying to retrieve the church fathers.
Yeah.
I don't know if retrieve is the right word.
No, I think that's right.
It's what we call it. They were certainly looking back to the church fathers and seeing themselves in continuity with the patristics. So from my perspective, and I think I got this in a certain class at a certain seminary with a certain prof. So I'm guessing there's agreement on this podcast that it's not that it's foreign to the Reformed tradition to look to the patristics. It's actually a reformational move to look to the patristics.
I mean, one of the more important early scholars of the fathers is Johannes Oecolampadius. He produced editions of the fathers. He translated the fathers, and he's just one of several Reformed figures in the 16th and 17th century that was doing real patristic scholarship. Luther read the fathers, but probably not to the same extent as, for example, Calvin, who spent a lot of time reading the fathers in Greek and Latin and shows pretty considerable facility with them. Maybe not to the same degree as Oecolampadius, but all of those who had particularly Renaissance influence, to use that word, that troubling word again, who studied with humanists or were themselves humanists. Oecolampadius would be one. Calvin would be another. They believed in retrieving original texts in original languages, and they thought of themselves as recovering patristic worship. I think, for example, I've argued if you took somebody from the 2nd century, and language differences being set aside for the moment, and set them in a 16th century Reformed service, they would have understood what was happening. If you set them in a 16th century Roman Catholic service, they would not have understood what was happening. So, which is contrary to the way people see things. People just assume, well, Roman Catholic theology, piety, and practice is what it has always been since the 2nd century, and that is just not true. Whereas Reformed Christianity was intentionally recovering patristic worship in important ways. And patristic liturgy. So, for example, in the 16th century Roman Catholic service, as today, you would see people conducting themselves like priests. There are no priests in 2nd century Christian worship. There are no ritual, liturgical, memorial, propitiatory sacrifices as there came to be in the Roman Catholic service. There are no icons in 2nd century worship as there came to be both in the East and in the West. So there are a lot of ways in which 16th century and 17th century Reformed worship would have looked a lot more like patristic worship. So it's not at all illegitimate for Reformed people to think of themselves as being in continuity with the Fathers and in significant ways even with the medievals. You see that more in the 17th century. You see the Reformed quoting and interacting substantively with the medievals. But even in the 16th century, one French Reformed theologian, I always forget who it is, I don't think it was Viret, but wrote a commentary on Peter Lombard's sentences, which was the major text of medieval theology for 500 years. So we've been reading the Fathers and appropriating them, learning from them, and being taught by them, and learning with them in a way for our whole history. We haven't always been as consistent as we were and as diligent about it as we were in the 16th and 17th centuries.
Yeah, there's a specific story here that needs to be challenged, right? It's things were okay in the ancient church, and then there was 1,000 years of everything being really bad, and then the Reformation was a total break when things finally got good. And I don't think that's the right story of church history.
No, that's right. That's the donut story.
Yeah, and even then, a lot of times
the donut superadditum story.
a lot of times, people still buy they accept that story, and they accept the Roman Catholic claim that Rome's doctrine and worship has been unchanged since the ancient church.
Yeah, and that's grossly inaccurate.
Yeah, so there are those two premises that need to be challenged in that story. And it may not be the case it isn't the case that we are identical to the church fathers, to the patristics. But no one is, first.
Yeah, that's right.
But our claim isn't that we're identical, it's that we stand in the same trajectory. Of course, doctrine was going to develop, and these things would form and refine over time. Of course, that's the case. But our claim is that we stand aligned with them, and that there wasn't a complete break between us and the church fathers, and even in some respects, the best of the medievals.
Yeah, I think that's right. So, yeah, we don't have anything about which to be embarrassed relative to our relationship to the Fathers when we are conducting ourselves consistently with our confessions and our catechisms. So the more we look like the P&R churches of the 16th and 17th centuries, the more we are going to look like the Fathers. The more we look like 19th century revivalist churches, then the less we're going to look like the Fathers. So we have to, recognize that in our own world, the P&R world, we're struggling with that, influence, that effect of revivalism in our world to some degree, fundamentalism to some degree. Somebody I know wrote a book that talks about quirk and choir, the quest for illegitimate religious certainty and the quest for illegitimate religious experience.
And is that where you got the idea from? From reading that book?
I think so. And so that, those impulses lead us away from our connection to the fathers. If we value that, then we need to be intentional and deliberate about that. All right, you ready for the second question?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Call or text now. 760-618-1563.
You got some letters?
All right, we do. Thank you, Mick. I like the very low-key way he says that. This is from Paul. Hello, Dr. Clark, and all. That would be...
Oh, hey. Thanks.
Yeah.
We're here.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, that would be you, boys. My name is Paul. I'm from up north of you, Clark.
Hi, Paul.
In the Bay Area. So, and he is a confessional Baptist. See how I didn't say a Reformed Baptist, he says. Good for you.
Attaboy.
Yeah, well done. And he says, I had a question about Second Commandment violations. I know, he says, and this is something we need to discuss, I know that the PCA allows for images of Christ, whereas the OPC does not. I agree with the classical Reformed in opposition to them. I was recently talking about this with a group of friends, many of whom are okay with images of Christ as long as he is not worshipped. The actual debate is not what I'm writing about, though. What I'm asking is this, being that an image of Christ is a violation of the Second Commandment and therefore sin, should church discipline be pursued? So that's the question. So the first premise I have to question is when he says, I know that the PCA allows for images of Christ. Scott, do you want to, as the resident PCA guy, do you want to speak to that?
Let's just say he's kind of right and he's kind of wrong, but unfortunately on the ground, he's right. So let's just say that.
So in the confessions held by the PCA, images of Christ are clearly and unequivocally rejected.
Also in that thing called the Bible.
Yes, in the Bible, yes. But the Bible, as understood in the PCA, the images of God, including God the Son incarnate, are forbidden.
Right.
What about the BCO?
The BCO?
Does it speak to that sort of thing? I don't know that it does. I'm just wondering.
If it does, it doesn't say anything different from what our confessions and catechisms say. Other than re-emphasizing the regulative principle of worship, I don't think it speaks directly to images. But I think what's frustrating is when you get on the ground, it's kind of like presbytery to presbytery.
Or who interpret them in ways that are contrary to the ways confessed by the church itself.
Yeah, but this is actually the issue that bothers me the most. So I think it's best if I just say the Second Commandment is still in effect. God wasn't joking, and our interpretation of it, which comes from our confessions and catechisms, they're not joking either. And I don't think this is one of the issues that does not strike at the vitals of our religion, of our theology, because it's the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
That sounds vital. But I would like to just real quick, read what God said about this. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. I'll stop there. But the point is, you shall not make, and you shall not worship or even use in worship or just have over on the side in worship.
Yeah.
But what the Israelites heard was, it's okay to make them though, right? And then that turns into, well, it's okay to use them in worship, right? Well, we know what happened to the Israelites who did that.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the Levites had swords. It wasn't decoration.
Yeah.
So I take this one very seriously.
Harrison, you lived with this issue in the Southeast as a member of the PCA, and you were originally ordained in the PCA. Is that correct?
I was, and that was not long after it came to the General Assembly about one of the congregations having images of Christ in its bulletin, worship folder, document that it took into worship, whatever you want to call that. Yeah. There may be an article in the Confessional Presbyterian of 2018 arguing that rejection of the confessional view of the second commandment does strike at the vitals of the system of doctrine that we hold. That was actually the first thing I published, and it's ironically, it's been one of the more popular things that I've ever published.
Yeah, I don't think that's ironic.
Well, I guess it was ironic because I didn't really expect or intend it to be that. It was actually a paper I wrote in seminary that I revised for publication, and some of the presbyteries actually circulate it still.
Use it.
Yeah. I don't think that those presbyteries are, although there is diversity, I don't know that the presbyteries in the South, in the PCA, they tend to be more reserved, more strictly confessional. I'm not trying to say that in a pejorative sense. They tend to be more restrained in some of these aspects. So, having been licensed in the South Coast Presbytery in Southern California and ordained in the Evangel Presbytery, there was a noticeable difference in the questions they were asking about these matters, and I'm thankful for that. I was confessional in both instances, so I didn't have a problem with it. But it has remained a thing. That is one of the differences between the PCA and the OPC. We don't allow for exceptions from the standards, so it's you can't state a difference.
Was there a study committee in the PCA on this? I have a memory of that, and I meant to look, and I forgot to look at that.
I don't recall that. So the question before us is not, is the confessional view correct? The question before us is, should church discipline be pursued?
Is this a matter of confessional fidelity, or is it a matter indifferent? Is that fair?
Yeah, I guess my response to the question is, I don't think that this is an exception that we should allow in our presbyteries.
Agreed.
I do think it strikes at the vitals. That's why I wrote that article. It's important enough on its own. It also connects with our understanding of important other doctrines that are certainly vital. I think that's the first step, is that this shouldn't be a permitted exception. And until it's not, I don't know that there's much that we can do. And I'm trying to reckon with, does he mean ministers or members?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he says.
In the Presbyterian system, members don't subscribe to the confessions.
Yeah.
They have a more limited set of membership vows. Don't think that we have ground to bring charges in a Presbyterian context for not following the confession on these issues.
Against laity.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe you guys could shed some light on why it's so important that we don't use worship images of any of the members of the Holy Trinity with respect to perhaps just Christological reasons. Is there anything that we need to have in mind, why Presbyterians think this is a serious command?
Yes, just to round out my previous thoughts, my approach to this is to focus on discipleship and instruction rather than invoking formal discipline. I teach about this, and I try to put in front of people the goodness, why it is good and helpful, in addition to being right. We as Reformed people understand the second commandment this way because, even in terms of things that the question invoked, is it okay to have an image if it's not worshipped? It's hard for me to understand the category of, here's Jesus, don't worship. How can you show me my Savior and deny me the privilege of worshiping him? That's cruel, as I understand it. And so this does have real concrete value for the way that we walk before the Lord as Christians. And to Scott's question, my article, and maybe we can link that for people. In my article, I argued that this touches upon the doctrine of God, our covenant theology, in regards to how worship works in concerning the regulator principle, the doctrine of Christ, and that's the traditional battleground, and our eschatology. I mean, those seem like pretty vital categories. And so, for the details, I'd point people to read my explanation in that article. But those are 4 pretty big tier categories where I think this intersects, that I think are vital. And this issue at least touches upon them.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by HeidelbergReformationAssociation.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast